Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. And I am here with Arkham Horror 3rd edition. This is my review. Completely unscripted review, as well I guess most of most of my reviews are. Um, I'm just gonna talk about this game and why I am this close to declaring it an absolute masterpiece. This game could very easily be my favorite Fantasy Flight game. I think this game is phenomenal. Probably the best way to review this game, at least to get going, is to compare it to 2nd Edition. I love 2nd Edition. It's one of my favorite games. It is, or it was, on my top 25 as of last year. I just played it this year. I played it once with every card expansion, I believe. None of the board expansions. I never liked the extra boards. I just felt they added too much time to the game. But I love all the stacks of cards. So I've been playing that, I believe, since around 2005, 2006 maybe. And it's one of my all-time favorite games. 3rd edition blows it away. It's not even a close second. Even though I like 2nd edition, there was a lot of things that I had trouble with, and over the years it hit the table fewer and fewer times. And it was because I think mostly, even though there was a ton of stuff in the game, far too often the games always just felt the same. You would either close enough gates, or you would spend the last 20 minutes of the game rolling a bunch of dice trying to whittle down the health of the ancient one. There was never really a cohesive narrative. There was never really an ebb and flow to the plot of the game. And you guys know how important that kind of stuff is to me. And 3rd edition, not only does it solve that problem, but this might be one of the best narrative board games that I've ever played, while still also being a board game driven by mechanisms, not just interactive fiction. It's not a work of interactive fiction. However, the way that the story unfolds while you play this game, it feels organic. It's absolutely masterful in how it creates a beginning, middle, and an end to the story that's being told while you're playing the game. There's only a small handful of games that I think that do that really well. Runebound does it a little bit, the 3rd edition, but not very well. Legends of Andor can do that. Fallout does it a little bit. There are some other games, but I don't know if any of them come close to doing what this game does. So one of the things with 2nd edition is you would add a whole bunch of cards. And my favorite thing about Arkham Horror was going to the locations and having random events. I liked being able to draw the card for, whatever you are, Arkham University or the Historical Society. I can't remember all the names of the places in 2nd edition, but drawing the card and having a random encounter with something. And there were a ton of those cards by the end of 2nd edition's life. However, that was almost always a detriment to winning the game. You didn't really win the game by having random encounters. Those were just little stories that I liked, so I would always do them whether or not it would help me win the game. Often I would play with people and they might get upset because all I wanted to do was go around and have cool things happen to my character. Well, they completely solved that in 3rd edition because you have to have the random encounters in order to win the scenarios. They encourage you to go to the spaces. They encourage you to draw events at those spaces because that's the only way that you're going to get clues to win the game. And that is just, that is such a cool thing. I don't know why it's taken so long for a game that has, you know, random events at certain spaces to get to this point. And I don't know, there's so much to talk about. I don't want this to be like a 40-minute review or anything, but I think we can start by saying that Arkham Horror 3rd Edition is now scenario driven. And in the base game, the base box, there are 4 scenarios. Now, I've played this game 4 times. I've played the initial scenario 3 times, and I've played this scenario, Feast for Umodorth, once. All 3 times I've played the first scenario, I've had a great time. I think I could probably play it once, maybe 2 more times before I'm tired of it. So if that's true for all the other scenarios, you know, that's anywhere between 12 and 20 plays with just the 4 base scenarios. That's a ton of gameplay for your money. Each time I played the opening scenario, I liked it for different reasons. The first time you play a scenario, you actually don't really know what your objective is. So there is a deck of cards here, and it's a pretty good sized card deck. I think there are 40 cards in this deck. And this is, what is this called? The Archive? Each deck of cards kind of has a different name. Yeah, the Archive. So this is called the Archive. And each scenario is going to use certain cards from this deck to create the plot. Kind of like how Fallout did with its deck of quest cards. You will not use all of these cards in one scenario. So, and they're not in like scenario order. You will be flipping through this deck, pulling out the cards you need when the time comes. When you start a scenario, you don't know really what the plot is. You don't know what your final goal is. And that really helps cement the idea that we are investigators. We are investigating these weird things that are going on in the streets and locations of Arkham City. And we don't know what's going on. We don't know what our overall goal is until you get enough clue tokens. And as you get clue tokens, more of these cards from the archive will come out, and they will, as they come out, they're called your codex. And you start learning about the plot, the intricacies, the mystery, the suspense, the danger starts revealing itself in 2 different ways. Either you get enough clue tokens to where you hone in on what's going on so you can stop it, or the doom tokens come out on the board and they start spreading doom. And if doom starts spreading more, then bad things are going to come out and you're going to have a harder time solving the mystery. And so in this quest, in this scenario, you start off with 3 cards, cards 1, 10, and 11. Outbreak, Fresh Meat, and The Hunger Below. And that gives you, each one gives you a little story. And then it also gives you different ways to either doom is going to be spreading, or you're going to collect a certain amount of clues to unlock other cards, maybe turn these cards over, maybe other monsters come out, you learn things, you'll put other tokens on the board. But these cards here are constantly pushing you and drawing you to the locations of interest on the board. So that brings me to the second cool thing, is the event deck. The event deck, so each of these tiles here, this module board, represents a neighborhood. There is a deck of cards, of event cards, just like in Arkham 2nd Edition, for each neighborhood. And each one of these has 3 different entries, one for each of the spaces in the neighborhood. However, there is also an event deck And this deck is unique for each of the scenarios, has its own event deck. Now, each neighborhood has a generic deck that you always play with, and you only use the scenario-specific neighborhood cards depending on which scenario you are playing. These control how doom gets spread on the board and how tokens get, or clue tokens get spread on the board. So now, unlike second edition, where if there was a clue at a certain location, you just went there and you got it. You didn't really need to do much to get it. Now, if a clue appears in the uptown neighborhood, then you know that you're going to have to go and have an encounter in that neighborhood to find that clue. And the way that works is pretty simple. When you're told to spawn a clue token, you draw the first card from the event deck and you put a clue where it says to. So in this case, it's Easttown. So I would put a clue at the Easttown location. Then I would take the Easttown deck of events and I would mix this in with the top 3 cards. Now there are 2 clues in Easttown right now. So I know that 2 of these 3 cards are going to allow me to get one of those clues. So I now have a mechanical reason to go to Easttown because I want to get those clues to help solve the story. But I also have a narrative reason because I'm going to go here. I'm going to have encounters here. I'm going to have narrative encounters and I'm going to get those clues to unlock the mystery. And it's just, oh man, that is just such a neat system. Nikki Valens, she completely blew my mind with Legacy of Dragonholt, which I think is one of the all-time great works of interactive fiction. It is like the ultimate choose your own adventure story. Like nothing else even comes close. You could stack up every Lone Wolf book, every fighting fantasy book, and I don't think they hold a candle to Legacy of Dragonholt. The Legacy of Dragonholt has amazing characters. It has action. It has mystery. It has intrigue. It has exploration. Fantastic game. And she has worked that same magic here. There's the choices are more meaningful here. Even starting from all the way at the beginning of the game when you choose your character. Each character has 3 items that they can choose to start with. Most of them you have to start with, you can choose, you get, the character card will say you take 1, like for instance, Agnes Baker. She takes the Heirloom of Hyperborea, but then she has to choose between the one of the 2 others. And they're all good. So even just like at the very onset of the game, you're faced with a choice that has real meaning. And as you explore the world and as things come out, you will have more choices, you have more direction, the narrative grows in an organic way, there is a plot is bubbling up, and the board changes as monsters come out, and it really feels like you are involved in this story that is happening on the table, and I love it. It's so good. So the game basically combines all of the good things from all of Fantasy Flight's Arkham games into one. And as you remember in Arkham in the second edition, you had the Mythos phase. Well, in this game, the Mythos phase is like from the living card game, where you draw these, you draw these tokens out, and each one of these tokens represents different things. And so you're going to seed your bag of tokens depending on the scenario with certain things, and you have a small deck of items that you can buy. There's always going to be 5 items out that you can purchase. What else? You have this your headline deck. You're going to play each game with 13 headlines out of a deck. And so if you remember in second edition, you could play with everything, but you usually had a better narrative experience if you played with only like 1 or 2 expansions, right? So if you play with like the Yellow King expansion only, you would experience that expansion more. It was more concentrated, and that made the game better because you could mix and match and have small. It was always better to play with fewer expansions, in my opinion. So, third edition does that right out of the box because there is this giant stack of cards that aren't even used in this scenario. So this scenario only uses what's out on the table. This is like the main bit of cards that are used in this scenario. All of these, they stay in the box. So you're not even seeing like half of the stuff, not even like maybe a third of the stuff in each scenario. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it. This is a fantastic game, guys. This is in the upper echelon of narrative, theme-driven board games. And I really can't wait to see how they expand it because it's got to be so easy, and I hope they don't screw this up. All they have to do is release small box expansions for this once, every 3 months with a new scenario card, a new event deck for that scenario, maybe a few extra headliner cards, a few cards to go into your archive to become your codex, and maybe a few items and spells, that kind of thing, followers. And then maybe once a year they could release a small, pack with extra investigators and their items and their starting cards. And then maybe, once a year do a larger box expansion. I hope they don't just keep adding a whole bunch of big tiles because I don't think we need the board to grow to a huge table hogging size. Keep it small, keep it focused. Make the expansions meaningful to how this game make the expansions so they take advantage of what makes Arkham Horror 3rd Edition such an incredible game. I'm trying to think if there's anything I don't like. It's maybe like if one of the one of the 2 other expansions I haven't played in this, maybe they're both bad. That would suck. I don't know. I really don't think there is a negative. It could be like some of these location cards, there aren't a lot in the main, there aren't a lot of generic ones. So let's see here, Southside. So Southside has no clues. So this is the whole deck for Southside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So each one has 3. So there's going to be 24 little events that happen here. Okay, that's not a lot. You're going to see the same ones probably once you play all those scenarios. But then remember, you're going to also be seeding cards from the event deck into the neighborhood. So, all right, well, that's it. That is my quick review of Arkham Horror 3rd Edition. I am really bummed that Nikki Valens no longer works at Fantasy Flight. I think losing her was a massive, massive blow to them. Because as far as I'm concerned, if her next game is as good as Legacy of Dragonhold and as good as Arkham Horror 3rd Edition, she is going to be a force to reckon with in this industry. We need strong women creators because I think they do approach things differently. And I am super stoked. I've heard a rumor from Jerry Hawthorne that I think she might be working on something for Plaid Hat Games. Maybe she's working with him on something. That would be freaking awesome. So yeah, Arkham Horror 3rd Edition. Get it. This game is incredible. You guys are going to love it. So, all right. Well, that's it. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.